NHN. Good evening, this is Nick Hall from NHN. Tonight, we'll be doing a special on the Electoral College, one of the least understood parts of the American political process. We'll be answering some frequently asked questions about the Electoral College and telling you a little bit about the history, purpose, politics, and workings of the system. We will also discuss some pros and cons of the Electoral College, as well as some suggested alternatives to the system. In brief, the Electoral College is simply the body of electors that elect the President and Vice President of the United States. But there's a lot more to it than that. Let's go over some frequently asked questions. Our first question is, who actually elects the President of the United States? When voters go to the polls on Election Day, they do not vote directly for a presidential candidate. Instead, they cast their votes for a slate of electors who have been given the authority by the United States Constitution to elect the President and Vice President. The electors are known collectively as the Electoral College. At the Constitutional Convention of 1787, delegates debated the manner in which the President of the United States was to be elected. Some argued that the Congress should select the President, while other proposals recommended an election by the people, the governors of the states, or state legislators. A compromise was reached in what became known as the Electoral College. Technically, it is these electors, not the American voters, who elect the President. Our second question is, why the Electoral College instead of direct vote by the people? The Constitution's framers established the Electoral College as a way to avoid the direct popular election of the President. Some of the Constitution's framers did not trust the ability of the common voter to make the right decision, so they devised the Electoral College as one way of lessening the power of the popular vote. Our third question is, how does the Electoral College work? The Electoral College, as established by the U.S. Constitution, currently includes 538 members, one for each U.S. Senator and Representative, and 3 for the District of Columbia. Each state is allocated a number of electors equal to its number of U.S. Senators, plus the number of its seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. Therefore, the population of each state affects how many votes that state has, and the number of votes each state has also changes every 10 years with the U.S. Census. So, the breakdown of the electoral votes is as follows. You have 100 for the senators, 435 for each seat in the House of Representatives, and 3 for the District of Columbia, for a total of 538 electors. Thus, to win the election, you need a majority of 270 votes. This is the magic number. Now, if I move that over there, we have our electoral map here, and you can see our home state, Indiana, has 11 votes. You can also see that someone could actually win the election by carrying only 11 states: California, Texas, New York, Florida, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Ohio, Michigan, Georgia, New Jersey, and North Carolina. With these 11 states, you'd have 271 votes, thus winning the election. Now, if no candidate wins a majority, the election goes to the House of Representatives. This has only happened twice, so it's relatively rare, and both times were in the 19th century. But if there is a popular third-party candidate, there's always a chance of it occurring. Our fourth and final question is, when does this all take place? On the Tuesday following the first Monday of November in years divisible by 4. According to the U.S. Constitution, voters in each state cast their ballots for the party slate of electors who represent their choice for president and vice president. Whichever party wins that state's popular vote for president receives the elector votes for that state. On the Monday following the second Wednesday of December, by federal law, each state's electors meet in their respective capitals and cast their votes, one for president and one for vice president. These electoral votes are sealed and transmitted from each state to the President of the Senate, who, on the following January 6th, opens and reads them before both houses of Congress. The candidate for president who has attained the majority of electoral votes is then declared the president. The new president and vice president are sworn in at noon on January 20th. Now let's go over some pros and cons of the Electoral College. The common argument for the Electoral College is that the electoral system is a unifying force that requires candidates to gather support from different regions of the nation to win the presidency. Another pro is that the electoral system is democratic, since it gives states with larger populations more voting power. A third pro is that it strengthens our country's system of federalism by giving the states more power. A fourth pro is that the electoral system works to prevent victories by smaller, lesser-known political parties, and it works to prevent elections from being thrown into the House of Representatives. Now let's go over some cons. The winner-takes-all system means that someone could lose the popular vote but still win the election by gaining a majority of the electoral votes. This occurred very recently in the election of 2000 when George Bush defeated Al Gore while still losing the popular vote. Another con is that there's nothing in the Constitution that requires the electors to be faithful to their party's candidate, so electors are not bound to the candidate for which the majority of citizens in their states voted for. This is a rare exception, though, and has never occurred. A third con is that the electoral system gives the larger states more political power. Now, since there are so many issues with the Electoral College, there are many proposed reforms for the system. In fact, a proposal has been introduced to every single term of Congress since 1789. Now, three of the most popular plans are the district plan, the proportional plan, and a direct popular election. Now let's go over the district plan. Over time, many people have proposed the district plan in which the electors would be chosen in each state in the same way as members of Congress. That is, 2 electors would be chosen from the state at large, and they would cast their electoral votes in line with the result of the statewide popular vote. The other electors would be elected separately in each of the state's congressional districts. Their votes would be cast in accord with the result of the popular vote in that district. Now, the district plan would do away with the winner-take-all problem in the present system. Its supporters have argued that it would make the electoral vote a more accurate reflection of the popular returns. Another proposal is the proportional plan. Under the proportional plan, each presidential candidate would receive the same share of a state's electoral vote as he or she received in the state's popular vote. Thus, if a candidate won 40% of the votes cast in a state with 20 electoral votes, he or she would get 8 of that state's electoral votes. Now, the third proposal that we're going to talk about is a direct popular election. This is the most common and widely supported proposal, as well as the most obvious one. Do away with the Electoral College system altogether and allow for a direct popular election of the president. The arguments for direct election seem overpowering. The strongest one is that it would support the democratic ideal. Each vote would count equally in the national result. The winner would always be the majority choice. The dangers and confusions of the present system would be eliminated, replaced by a simple and easily understood process. That concludes our program for this evening. We hope that you learned a thing or two about the Electoral College in the process. Don't forget to tune in again tomorrow night for another exciting program about our nation's government. Thank you, and have a good night.